Good evening, everyone. We don't have a microphone. Can you hear me? Yes. I try to be loud. I'm Maria Pervelini, the Dean of the School of Architecture and Design at New York Tech. For any of you that doesn't know me, I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the premier event and lecture celebrating the launch of architectural exaptation when function follows form, authored by our own IDC Foundation Endowed Chair, Professor Alessandro Melis, with co-authors Telmo Pievani, Professor of Biology at the University of Padua in Italy, and Antonio Lara-Hernandez, postdoctoral research fellow at the Auckland University of Technology. Before we get to the lecture, I would like to spend a few words to just share with you something about the IDC Foundation. It is a true honor to welcome tonight the IDC Foundation President and Treasurer, Ray Savino, is on his way, and Henry Miller, Principal at High Impact Partnering, and is assisting the IDC Foundation and the board of directors. And actually we are good friends because Henry is following us since years, I would say, of the partnership, since the beginning of the partnership with the IDC Foundation. And we have the pleasure to welcome Henry as well tonight. So I'm very, very grateful for you to be here with us. The IDC Foundation has awarded our school more than 3 million since 2018 in support of several initiatives and facilities and resources and programs. For example, the state-of-the-art digital fabrication lab on the Long Island campus that was opened in 2021 with a broad range of equipment operating at multiple scales and with a variety of materials, including a robotic and advanced 3D printing smart lab, building information modeling technology, simulation programs, AR, VR, XR, UX, UI technology, you name it, what we were able to provide in that lab. The IDC Foundation also supported us with an endowed chair of digital technologies, and is the first endowed chair at New York Tech, and actually Alessandro Melis was selected to represent this important and prestigious position. The IDC grants also sponsor 2 new post-professional Master of Science degree in health and design and in computational technologies that we recently start to offer. We received from the IDC Foundation additional innovation and scholarship grants. One for the expansion of the New York City Fab Lab, plus a new biotech research lab in Long Island, plus help to support and upgrade the Hive Lab, new equipment, workshops to investigate opportunities and promote innovative research, including the creation of a healthy materials lab for research on architecture and design solutions that promote sustainable and healthier environments. I'm not done yet. It's quite remarkable and amazing the support that we get from this foundation over the years. And such an important partnership that makes such a big difference for our school. IDC grants support skill training for our students that focuses on design processes to help both develop and accelerate student abilities in design and digital design fabrication practices and computation design, as well as prepare students for current industry demands. Is one more help that is supported by the IDC Foundation. Annually, we receive additional support for student scholarships, fellowship, and student experiences. You see how immense, how great is the help and support that we receive from this important IDC partnership with our New York Tech and our school. And I look actually forward to continuing to grow our relationship and find new ways to work together to foster important research and equip our students to thrive in a constantly changing world. And thanks to the support of the IDC Foundation that we have Alessandro Melis actually tonight presenting his book. So thank you, Henry. Thank you, Ray. I know he's on his way. We are immensely grateful for your help. Going to the book, and Professor Melis here tonight, the book investigates the significance of studying exaptation as a means to expand the taxonomy of architectural design towards more ecological positions. Exaptation refers to the functional shift of a structure that previously served as a different purpose or no function at all. Adapting this perspective opens up pivotal opportunities to rethink our methods of urban planning and architectural design and encourage innovation with interdisciplinary studies that bridge evolutionary biology, paleoanthropology, genetics, and architecture, and offer new ways of approaching challenges in times of global environmental crisis. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to spend a few more moments to introduce Alessandro. He's the inaugural IDC Foundation Endowed Chair. He's the first in the whole institute. We don't have any other endowed chair, so we are first one more time in our success. He's a professor tenure, actually soon to be tenure, and director of our Master of Science in Computational Technologies in the School of Architecture and Design. In 2021, he was the curator for the Italian pavilion at the International Architecture Venice Biennale. Alessandro has been appointed as Ambassador of Design multiple times since 2020, and still this year, actually, in several locations, in several countries, by the Italian Ministry of External Affairs, which is a very prestigious appointment. Before joining New York Tech, he was the director of the International Cluster for Sustainable Cities at the University of Portsmouth in UK, director of postgraduate engagement at the University of Auckland, co-director of a program at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, visiting professor at the Anhalt University Dessau, Politecnico di Torino, University of Perugia, many other appointments that, give us the pleasure to welcome Alessandro Melis as a prolific, absolutely incredible colleague with such a broad range of credentials that make our school even more prestigious. And I would like to now welcome Alessandro to the podium.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. Before I introduce the main content of this book, I'd like to acknowledge those who have been indispensable for its creation. Over these past 3 years, my research in the field of architectural exaptation has been evolved and also extended, thanks to the School of Architecture and Design at New York Tech, under the mentorship of our dean, Maria Pervellini. I've had the opportunity to explore exaptation as a form of collective creativity. This is why I cherish the opportunity to have been here. Consequently, many case studies that are included in this publication are based on the project of research conducted by my colleagues, my dear colleagues at the school, and also including the collaboration with several students. And again, when I'm talking about students, in the case, I'm not talking about students supporting the activity of the faculties, but I mean students proving to be researchers at the same time, which has been something very relevant for us because it has given us the opportunity to be present in the for 2 times in a row at the Venice Biennale with the project Student as Researcher. So I'm particularly grateful to Maria for providing me the opportunity to work under your guidance, Maria. Thank you very much, especially in a context where the idea of collective creativity is relevant, where we understand that the product of the school is a product of a collegial group of people that work for these goals. The goals of, let's say, that goes beyond the interest of the school, and that we hope they can be significant for impact beyond academia into what we call community. Additionally, I would like to take the opportunity to see you again, Henry, to thank you for the support of the IDC Foundation. So IDC Foundation, as you can imagine, has been crucial in enabling, not me, us, to contribute significantly in this field. So it has been through the honor to meet you first time when we met last time, and also be inspired by your generosity. And I would like also to extend, when he'll be here, also my gratitude to Ray Sabino. As I said, your support, you have to be aware that your support has allowed us to make New York Tech, our voice, heard internationally. And this has been very important. I've been particularly proud. Part of my job is to also be around, let's say, in conferences, in international context. And you cannot imagine how proud I feel when someone is coming to me and say, what is happening in New York Tech? We hear about New York Tech here and there. What are you doing? And I think that this is the evidence of the meeting between 2 visionary leaders. One is Maria, and the other is leader as an institution, IDC Foundation. Such events are, and I'm taking the chance to say this because my colleagues already came back from there, like we've been talking about Venice Biennale, but also Salone del Mobile very recently. So this book is also an homage to you, the IDC Foundation, but it's also, if you want, an act of a gift that I would like to offer to my colleagues, because this is part of a group of, let's say, a community, not a group, of colleagues in the field of architecture. So I take the chance to thank my colleague Athena Papadopoulou, who is the chair of the, hi Athena, chair of the committee and lecture event, and Susan for the organization. I don't see Susan. Hi, Susan. Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to take the opportunity also to thank Telmo Pievani, that unfortunately I'm bringing to you his regards. He cannot be here with us, especially for the timing, but of course, it's particularly also from his perspective, is particularly, how can I say, happy to be recognized in a field. Telmo Pievani, just for those who don't know, is probably one of the most brilliant or recognized, acknowledged mind in the field of evolutionary biology in the world. Nevertheless, has considered the opportunity to work with architects as a great possibility. So he's been very grateful also to all of us for this opportunity. And of course, my partner, many studies that I don't know if he's online somewhere, but Antonio Lara-Hernandez. And of course, I would like to extend my thanks to also my colleagues, as I was mentioning before. So our exceptional associate team, Giovanni and Anthony, our dedicated chairs, Trudy, Florenzi, and Kevin, and my fellow director, Christian and Marcella. I also started calling them Marcella. Thank you. While I'm starting showing about the project, I would like to say that this project I will repeat many times, so this is why probably it's less important to be considered now. This is especially, I'm particularly thankful to our students. This is the reason why in a way, I could complete this book. This is very much about the student as a potential research that can be game changer in times of environmental crisis. So This book is particularly dedicated to you all, and I'm very happy to see some of my dear students here present. But of course, there is another reason why I'm particularly happy to be in New York in these 3 years in which my research has been achieved. I believe the completed result. New York is, for those who are not aware, New York is really a place where in the 80s, groundbreaking revolution took place. Not very far from here. So here you see the Biodiversity Hall in the American Museum of Natural History. This is a place that has been curated by Stephen Jay Gould. Stephen Jay Gould is definitely one of the brightest minds of of this century and of this generation. But what is even more important from our perspective is the person that started the revolution in evolutionary biology under the banner of exaptation. So this image, in a way, for those who are curious to know what is exaptation, I would like that to be more explicit than my description. So this is exaptation. So exaptation is, to use the word of Johan Birney, who is the first who have sequenced the human genome, is a jungle full of strange creatures. This is how nature can be seen. So this is a festival of disorder, disorganization, creativity. It's let's say exaptation is the place where everything can be seen as a product of art in different way. What is also interesting about Stephen Jay Gould that the first time he had to explain what exaptation was, he found very difficult to explain exaptation using the conventional terms of biology. And interesting enough, he has used an architectural metaphor to explain what is exaptation. And by the way, Venice is a place that is particular there to all of us for our recent exhibition. The example that he was focusing on was the Church of San Mark, Venice. The term that he used to explain exaptation, or better to say what is a creative structure in the evolutionary biology, can be described as a metaphor. And the word spandrel describes one of these four corners that you see here in the dome of San Marco. I will explain this a little bit later. First, I want to arrive to the point because I'm aware that this, even if you go to the vocabulary, the word exaptation is kind of tricky. You can find typically only in the scientific document, scientific research and paper books from biology, evolutionary biology. As Telmo used to say very often, this is quite kind of critical because we are studying, many of us are still studying in book at school that are so outdated, they don't even include this term. So what is exaptation? Maybe the best thing is to make an example. The skull of humans, okay? We are aware that skull of humans have these sutures, these cut, okay? And we are all aware probably that the reason why this is happening is because during the birth, there is a need of flexibility. And the evolution of human has developed in a direction of expanding the brain. So there is the need to have these mechanism to allow the birth, okay? So this flexibility. If we think this from a traditional evolutionary biology perspective, we can understand immediately the idea of the engineeristic power of evolution that develops something in a very precise way for a very precise use, which is, again, form follows function, which is in architecture, we used to refer to modern architecture, but I would say that in general, we tend to extend this even beyond modern architecture. What is exaptation? Exaptation is referred to the fact that in the third Origin of the Species edition, Darwin, for the first time, realized that something was not working. There was a glitch in this theory. Okay, and it's interesting because this idea of the glitch is something that is repeated many times in physics, in philosophy. It's something that you, like the lambda of the theory of relativity theory, something that doesn't work properly. It takes a long time, like in this case, lambda, it refers to the fact that we discovered that the calculation didn't work because we were not able to calculate the black matter. Same here. Same here. So we have a mechanism that is perfectly understandable and that has been very successful at the end of the second half of the 19th century. But then in this case is not working. And why it's not working in the case of the skull of the human? The reason that why this is not working is because these elements that you see here are also present in the skull of the birds. And the birds, as you know, they don't need to, their birth depends on eggs, and even more, the birds predates human. So why this function? This has no uses, no use this idea. So in a way, right before with Athena talking about this, we said, what does it mean? It means that evolution is not an engineer, is an artist. So he makes culture. He makes things that are redundant, variable, diverse, without a specific purpose. This is the, let's say, the great discovery of exaptation. To be honest, Stephen Jay Gould, Telmo Pievani, Niles Eldridge, the big minds in this field, they say it's about bricolage, it's about tinkering. I don't like this, so I change in, we make sculpture. Evolutionary biology or the mechanism of natural selection is about making sculpture. It's not about making engineeristic machine. It's about producing redundancy, producing exuberance. This is interesting for architects because this moves us in a different position in terms of taxonomy. So the reason why I believe that exaptation is useful for architecture is because it allows us to think in a different way from a taxonomical perspective. It's not about finding an alternative to what we know. It's about extending our understanding. The other classical case is the feeder of the birds, okay? The feeder of the birds are actually originally designed by natural selection as a thermoregulation system for the dinosaur. Then the evolution, the context, the constraints, the exuberance of the formal characteristics of the skeleton at the body of the dinosaur allow them to develop the possibility of flight. So here we see the two different typology of exaptation. Exaptation type 1, functional shift. First, there is a use, then the use become obsolete or can be extended. Exaptation number 2, it's called spandrel, which means that from something without function, we develop through functional cooptation a use that can be needed in a certain context. So as I was mentioning before, I always find significant that in architecture, we never heard. The first time that this article has been published by, I think that the one about, yes, in 79, the first time that Richard Lewontin and Stephen Jay Gould published this article. In this article, they are saying, how can I explain, this is fantastic as an educator, how can I explain the biologist, this concept is very complex, that the world is more complex. And I find intriguing that we don't know anything about this, but Stephen Jay Gould and Lewontin decide, okay, let's talk about architecture. And what they say is, you see the dome and you see these, which are the spandrel, okay? So when you go inside the church and you are not an expert in architecture, you think that the idea of the decoration of these elements with the evangelic, I don't know if it's correct, evangelic figures, precise 4 elements around one dome with all the, let's call the imaginary that is around this, is a perfect combination. If you are not an expert architect, you say, oh, this is clearly designed for this purpose. So the idea is that I have this structure and these are designed for this use. What we know is that this is not true. They have been functionally co-opted for something else. And for us, this is what stays. So this is why they define actually I had a kind of an interesting discussion with Telmo Pievani and Jan Tattersell. Jan Tattersell is the senior curator now of the Museum of National History. So he's the person, just to mention the type of person that have been, for me, enlightening. Jan Tattersell is the person who has built the first complete Neanderthal skeleton. Jan Tattersell is the first who has explained to all of us exactly what we are trying to say here, that the evolution of man is not linear, that the Neanderthal is here, the man, the human sapiens are here, and so that we live inside a sort of cloud, which, by the way, derived from the idea of exaptation. So, but it's a very nice guy. So I was complaining as an architect, saying, that's not true that it was not in use before. This was a structural system where, and they say, yeah, but you make this too complicated. It's spandrel number 2. It's exaptation number 2. So something that has no use that they become useful. However, this is something that can be described and expanded in a different way. So I was mentioning that Jan Tattersell is basically the person who has clarified that this is how evolution happened. But this is what I meant when I was telling to you, Telmo Pievani is complaining that if I ask to many of the students here, probably they have studied in books where they believe that this is true. This is completely wrong, okay? So there is not such a thing that arrived to human. We are here, we are part of a group of people. It's like a university. There is not someone who is born, developed the other. We just work well if we are together, and everybody has his own. And you see here, we are here, but we are part of a branch developed a completely different way. So because of course you can understand this is a very complex matter. So one of Ray, you want to see?
Oh, please.
No, please.
Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ray Savino.
Thank you.
So here, as I was mentioning before, of course, as you can imagine, the discussion will be very complex to understand what does it mean in terms of architecture. So I will try to make simple in the sense that I would like to encourage you to read the book if you have the interest. But if I want to simplify the message, the book is trying to explain that in architecture we are doing the same. Basically, we are designing using this as a taxonomy, and we are completely neglecting this possibility. I make you an example. If I ask you about this type of hand, what is the most evolved hand here? You want to do this, guys? Which one is the most evolved hand here?
I think it's a setup question. I'm going to take the one on the right.
Good one. You see why you are impressed. That's the point, because if we watch the other one, we tend to be convinced that this is the most evolved hand, and we tend also to think that we are let's say the most evolved species on this planet. Okay, but I would like to show you another interesting aspect. This is a gorilla hand, and if you watch the hand of the human, it's strangely, maybe not in this photograph, but believe me, the hand of the gorilla is much more similar to the human rather than to the chimp, okay? And the reason why we know that the chimp is more evolved is because finally in the past 20 years we have been able to sequence the genomes, also and we know that this is has more development, okay? There is be aware that after the revolution of exaptation, there is no idea of progress, linear progress. So when we talk about evolution, we are not talking about the best, the fittest, the strongest. This concept is completely disappeared from the taxonomy of evolution. It's about how much the structure has been developed, how much is complex, and much fit for a certain context. So the reason why these are closer is because in reality, our common ancestors is more closer to gorilla, and our hand has developed much less than the chimp. So it's not saying that they are more developed than us. It's about telling that this is not existing. And when we talk about this, we are not talking about something which is better than other. Actually, this is a mosaic where different characteristics go in different directions. Just to make another example, which has been quite groundbreaking, because we have this idea of the Neanderthal, kind of rude, primitive human. We discovered they have a much bigger brain, and probably there are theories that we are also a little bit more poetic than we are. Okay, so this is contradictory.
That'd be a high bar.
So the idea is that this is all transferable in architecture, and I'm not going about the panda with man because there's not much time to talk about this. But let's come to the more specific point. When I talk about extension of taxonomy, what exactly I mean? Again, it's more transferring this concept into architecture. Well, this has to do a lot with architecture for two reasons. The first is probably obvious. We always like the idea of biomimicry, and we always look for the great master, okay? And of course, from a biology perspective, who is the great designer on this planet, if not natural selection? Is the most successful. So, okay, so we just want to learn how this master operates, okay? And we did already, because actually the idea of architecture that we pursue now is very similar to the orthodox idea of evolution. Let me explain a little bit. So the word don't correspond to what the one they use in architecture. So adaptation, if you transfer the word adaptation into design, actually it means design adaptation. So they don't use adaptation as we think to make something that change according to, let's say, a certain context. It's about thinking of a scenario, thinking about what are the needs and the constraints in this scenario, think about what function can be respond to these constraints, and then developing form and shapes, okay? And this is what I meant, because I'm nothing against engineeristic perspective. This is what I mean as an engineeristic perspective. We were assuming that natural selection was able to understand a certain scenario, so that, for instance, in this place there is a forest, in this place there is water, and then to develop what are the needs of the organism in that scenario, how to sleep, how to drink, how to eat, how to hunt, etc., etc., and then make a shape that responds to this function, okay? This is how we understood evolution until 1982, until the publication of the book by Stephen Jay Gould and Elizabeth Vrba, what is about exaptation. So if we go here, this book, let's say, this publication is explaining that the taxonomy is extended. So adaptation is one of the two mechanisms. One is exaptation, and the other is adaptation. And the word, the design word, is aptation. What is happening here? This is happening exactly what I was telling you before about the skull and about the feathers. The natural selection make form and shapes like this, like a crazy architect, okay? And we also know the characteristic of the shape. And I will tell you because you will understand how crazy the architect is. And then these things can be used or not. So there is not functionality in the fact that they are used or not. The functionality is the existence. So if the scenario is unexpected and there are constraints and needs, parts of these crazy shapes and function can be co-opted functionally. And it's not linear because there is no rule telling how much, how many, if yes or no. Theoretically, this thing can be silent for all their life or can be used. The important is that you have a crazy architect making crazy things as much as possible. Multidisciplinarity is crucial here because while let's say it's like what happened for the black matter. So there were a lot of, or the Big Bang, there are a lot of theory, but then it took like 30 years to have scientific proof in different fields corroborating this position. This happened also here. So exaptation has been challenged for many years by orthodox evolutionists until they found result in genetics and in paleoanthropology. This is, for instance, I would say it's definitely a groundbreaking, again, article, a series of research by Ethel Pringle, paleoanthropologist. And this is much closer to the field of architecture because Ethel Pringle is collecting all the literature review about the birth of creativity. So he's describing the birth of creativity. And it's interesting enough that if you understand from a paleoanthropological point of view what creativity is very different from what we usually think. Creativity, to make this simple or shorter, creativity is an emergency modality of thinking of human. And it's mostly based on a new emerging way of thinking that started 200,000 years ago, which is called associative thinking. In simple words, it happens at a certain moment, 200,000 years ago, that our brain stopped growing. And we have this idea, linear idea, that our intelligence is because we have big brain. Actually not. What distinguishes us to other humans, okay, is the fact that at a certain moment our brain stopped growing and started creating connection. So we started creating association. It's interesting because when Ethel Pringle has to describe what is creativity is doing things without purpose. Thinking of things that information that you have in your brain and immediately producing output which don't have purpose, okay? Why it's an emergency system? Because she discovered that a chimp, like the one that you see before, is intelligent from a logic perspective as much as a human. When he has to eat ants from a hole, he's able to take a stick, put inside, take out and eat. Humans, of course, can do this. But what he's not able to do is, while he has free time, the chimp is not taking the stick, breaking the stick, putting the stick in the hair, playing with the stick like this, and start doing that make no sense. But this no sense as the one that led us to find the fire or to cope the fire. So in simple words, what Ethel Pringle is saying is that creativity works through association, not through invention. In fact, we should, this is one of the hypotheses that I put in, we should stop even call creativity. Creativity is based on the taxonomy that we have as human, that from ex nihilo, from nothing, we create something because we are human. Actually, we should call evolutivity. Evolutivity means that we take things that are already there, we have fun with them, and then we understand that we can use for something. And this is how we invented the fire, and this is how, by the way, we also discovered the origin of the Big Bang. So when I say this, I'm not saying that the crazy artists are all here. Actually, the best scientists have been the ones that have been used these tools in the strongest way. So if you see creativity in these terms, you also will understand very clearly that exaptation is scalable. And creativity is an extension of exaptation potential of human. So in simple words, this is how we can operate now. Have you seen before that I was saying that the engineeristic perspective is not an alternative to exaptation? This is an extension of taxonomy. This means that we have to use the engineeristic approach and the artistic approach. So it's something like this. It's a bubble in which associative thinking is the instrument that humans use to use exaptation in design. So we operate in both directions. We are able to try to define a scenario and then a function and then a shape. So function forms follow function and do also the opposite. And these things operate collectively to create a work. In simple words, what I'm saying is that I don't know, some colleagues will not agree with me, but you know, when we do the studio, I always told to some of you already, guys, very often, some of the students, and when a professor, sorry, maybe some of the professors will start hating me, and you do something, and then the professor come and tell you, yeah, why you have done this? And the students say, I don't know, I cannot give you a reason. This is unintentional, so it's wrong. Well, this means that professor doesn't know exaptation. So, what we cannot stop. So we should stop to make taxonomy categorization, but we cannot stop to doing this because human, as Stephen Jay Gould say, we are arrogant. We want to put at the center of the stage, and we like to make categorization. So even if the categorization would be the opposite of what we should do, but we did. Okay, so And in a way, what we can find here are the categories that are fundamental for exaptation that we can transfer immediately to architecture, okay? So exaptive design means that we have to embrace what is unintentional, serendipitous, disordered, disorganized, imperfect, complex, and functional. These are not casual, let's say, not by coincidence. There is a magnificent book by Telmo Pievani about serendipity, another fantastic book by Richard Sennett about disorder, and another book by Telmo Pievani about imperfect. What I want you to notice is that there is a kind of negative aspects in this. This depends on our taxonomy. There is nothing if you watch from in fact, they use completely different terms here. But if you watch from an evolutionary perspective, they are not using these terms in this sense because this is not their problem. These and that are exactly the same. However, in this categorization idea emerged these three terms that evolutionary biology like to use when they want to define what is a creative structure in these terms, okay? It means that to be a good designer, according to nature, you need to be a good engineer, but you need to be, as I said before, also a good artist. And the three magic word to be a good artist is to create redundancy, variability, and diversity in everything that you do. I don't know what it means and how to do this. And this is what we are trying to experiment also in the school, but we will try to do as much as we can. This is a diagram that Stephen Jay Gould will show in a way to demonstrate how our perspective of the world is working. He was showing that this is how many of us see the world, see the evolution, and this is how, according to Scott Peck, and this is how, according to Stephen Starley, should be the evolution man. And I always like to show this to my students because it's like showing them when you do your diagrams or when you took your project, we students always start with something like this, but I would like them to arrive to something as much as they could here, how to embrace this complexity. So in a way, this is the, let's say, in summary, this is the discussion that with Telmo and the colleagues from the evolutionary biology side, and as an architect, we have, let's say, agreed. In a way, we are saying that there is in nature this scalability. So there is a redundancy variability in the evolution, in our DNA. You remember the word that has been, when the first time the human genome has been sequenced, we discovered a part of the human genome without use, and we call junk DNA. This is a fantastic idea to see how humans transform the world that they see around them with terms that describe their own taxonomy, not the reality. Because the junk DNA is exactly the evidence that corroborates the fact that exaptation is the future. The future is the evolutionary mechanism with much power. Because this junk DNA in reality is the redundancy, variability, and diversity in the DNA that can be co-opted for function. Epigenetic is a new study about this, but there are many examples. So nature do this at all levels. So micro level, microcellular level, let's say the level of the reality that we know, and as a consequence, architecture or the way we transform the world, it's an extension of the exaptation. So the way we transform the environment is not something artificial according to this theory. It's just a scalable version of the exaptation. Even to arrive, this is one of the theses that are present in the book, you know, this discussion about AI. Okay, AI is stealing our job, is not stealing our job, it's good, it's bad. Of course, I'm not going into there because evolutionary biology doesn't have an ethical or moral position. But from an evolutionary position, AI operates exactly in the same way that from the point of view of the data collection, connection, and output, Ethel Pringle described creativity. And from an exaptation point of view, it operates exactly as an extension of variability, diversity, and redundancy, how it is described by evolution. So in simple words, what we are saying is that either we like or not, artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence in this case is just an extension of this system. With the negative and the positive, it's not about this. And this is another thing because it's like for when we talk about architecture, again, we are not talking about things that are not existing. Like in the case of Darwin, the point of Stephen Jay Gould was not to say, oh, I'm inventing something nobody realized. No, it's explaining that there is a change in the taxonomy. Because also the other evolutionists realized that there was something happening that was not right. But they say this is marginal, everything is marginal, like the lumber of the black matter. Same here. We know a lot of things that don't belong to architecture, let's call it in a linear way. It's mine.
It's better.
So restoration, regeneration, conservation, recycling, upcycling, informality, temporary preparation, adaptive reuse, consolidation. These are all terms that are repeated many times. So the difference here is not that we are talking about something that doesn't exist there. The difference is that we are talking about something that can be seen in a different way within this context. And here you see the terms of scalability that I was mentioning before. Now I want to go a little bit, this is the background, of course. I hope that at least clarify what is the term of exaptation. I just want to mention a few case studies that are included, and I will try to be as quick as possible. You have checking the time, sorry, I don't want to. Another 10 minutes is okay?
Sure.
Okay, yep. So I just want to show you some examples in which, for different reasons, there is a glitch happening and we don't know how to justify this glitch. One of the cases that have been crucial in understanding, by the way, again, not only in our book, but this is present in other important book from a different perspective. This glitch that explained that reality is not really how we described it. Göbekli Tepe is one of these examples. For those who are not familiar, Göbekli Tepe is it's not a recent discovery. The discovery has been done in '94, but the problem is that we had the possibility to calculate the timeline when this the plaster has been applied to this very recently. So it's a very complex settlement. We don't know what it was. We don't know how it worked. It's by the way, highlighting how the center of the civilization is not in the middle of the Mesopotamia area, but it's more in the north, in the point of contact of the two rivers in the Turkey area. And this is what I wanted to show you, why Göbekli Tepe is critical and why this is in a way showing that our taxonomy of architecture is arguable at the minimum. So this is, as I said, this is a little bit the idea that we teach at school, so with the development from classic to middle age, etc. Okay, we are assuming that instead the history goes like this, where pieces of evolution are here and there, and not necessarily this is the best thing happening. Maybe there is a piece here and a piece there. Okay, this is a proof and evidence of this. So we know that for those who are not aware that Göbekli Tepe has been built in this period, 11,000 years ago. Okay. What is the problem with this date? First is that it's much in the back. So for clarify, Stonehenge is here. Okay, so Stonehenge is much closer to us than Stonehenge is close to Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if you've seen the structure. Okay, and this is already critical because we need to redesign history in terms of deep time, and this is again something that we should learn from biologists and geologists. We are not doing architecture. But there is another part which is even more critical. It's because we have always started. I bet that you cannot find any book of architecture that did not say that architecture is a product, is a bioproduct of civilization, that is a consequence of the moment in which our society become stopped to be a society of hunter and gatherer. They discovered agriculture, so develop complexity, and they develop settlement, which happened here. Okay, so at the moment, nobody is able to explain how 30,000 people of hunter-gatherer, beware, I'm talking about sciences, this is not, I know because sometimes there are people fascinated by alien things. No, I'm not talking about this. This is all scientific, serious. Okay, so let's start from this. So the point critical for the scientists, for the archaeologists, is different. So we don't know what kind of society is able to put together 30,000 people that are hunter-gatherer, and they built a structure which is 100 times more complex than Stone Age. We have no idea what kind of society, but for sure we know that agriculture was not essential to do so. Developing the so-called civilization was not essential to do so, and we have no idea what kind of society. Okay, for those who are interested, this has become also a political discussion, because it emerged that it's not necessarily true that all the type of society with the government we know are the only possibility. Okay, however, this is just an example, and we'll go a little bit deeper in explaining this. Why this is important now? Why we are talking about taxonomy in this moment? Well, again, let's try to make this very simple. Taxonomy are not reality. Okay, nobody here is able to define what is reality. What we can do is to create abstraction of the reality. According to Michel Foucault, if you want to take some, of course, more important than me, that if we are not representing reality, and if we don't want to go back to Aristotle or Plato, that of course have been defining this in a more philosophical or poetical way, the point, according to Michel Foucault, is that taxonomy, so abstraction of reality, are good until they are useful, are helpful for our survival. So the point why we were discussing about ecology is because if the idea that we have built of this linearity of construction of cities, evolution of human, evolution of buildings, etc., leads to this result, which is, by the way, the fact that for the first time, Ron Miller is termed as his team confirmed that we overcome artificial mass, overcome the biomass on this planet, and that now we see that there is a correlation between inequality in this planet and environmental condition. We are assuming that the taxonomy that we've built is not working. And this is exactly the feeling that Darwin had when he started thinking, and this is exactly the reason why exaptation in evolution, in evolutionary biology, has become relevant. So the thesis of this book is that maybe we need not to think if I'm more for minimalistic architecture, maximalistic architecture, if I like sustainability or not. It's about stopping, step back, and watching the taxonomy. What is artificiality? What is nature? What is ecology? So we don't have to give for granted that architecture is something that produces waste, for instance. And this is the assumption that we are doing every time we do a project here. This is an example to quote the fact that in history, this already happened. The crisis of the 14th century was an environmental crisis. It's always fascinating to remind that these crises are overcome not by politicians, not by economists, has been overcome by artists. Actually, we didn't call them artists, we called them polymath, people who were able to bring together different disciplines. What I'm trying to say is that I hope that architects are the people able to bring together these different fields and make the synthesis. This is the ambition. And I hope that here in this room, there is one Leonardo da Vinci, here, somewhere there. We are already doomed. So this is an example of city that is designed with the clear adaptation. So I'm not talking if it's bad or wrong, but it's a clear adaptation purpose. And here we are showing examples that in different way are case studies present in the book showing how exaptation has been part of this process. The Piazza Anfiteatro in Lucca, San Carlo le Quattro Fontane, the Borrominic Church, Gothic Church, the hand still of the first human, and the Bell antenna in New Jersey. But if you know what it means, you have to read the book. Here are some examples that have been done in that context. So how we have been trying, and again, because it's an open discussion, we don't know if we achieve the result. But as you probably know, this is important for New York Tech. This is when we started a collaboration in New York Tech. This is why at the beginning, Ray, you were not here, what I was saying that this for me has been crucial, because what you see here is a process that started here, and I hope that will continue here. This is about how to bring together this idea. Is it possible to define a functioning structural system that embrace exaptation, which means that, for instance, all the categories are in a way mixed up. So the fact that there is in a column, there is a hydroponic system, or let's say here is how the project is designed to try to think that the power of the project is about making different relationships within the historic compact city and ecology. This is a seed bank. This is another example of a project that live in that context. This one is one of the two first attempts to make a window, so an opening, using an organism as a sunscreen system. What it happens here is that the slime mold that is included in this laminated structure through Arduino system and sensor and actuators, we are able to feed this organism, and this organism expand and reduce, like you see here, in order to increase or reduce opacity. So again, this is an attempt to, in a way, take the taxonomy, break it down, and rebuild in a completely different way. And this has been already published in several, let's say, how can I say, accredited scientific journal as the first window, or let's say first opening system which use a living organism as a sunscreen system. By the way, because we like the colors, we decided to also feed them with something that make them more fancy. And this is the system. This has been, by the way, awarded at the Venice Biennale, so at the Buenos Aires Biennale, or in this case, which is air conditioning system and exchange of air system done only with plants. But again, it's not about coming back and thinking, okay, we turn to vernacular architecture, going ahead, we go to technology. The cards are completely mixed up because there is a lot of vernacular things here, there is a lot of botany, there is a lot of technology. And here are other examples. So this is a material that has been studied to make a wall also as a machine that reduces the impact of the pollution, the environment. And also in the other case, like this one, this has been open, has been inaugurated one month ago in the Tenerife. And it's a wall, a facade that basically reduced the impact of, let's say, 95% of viral charge. This is a building that has been completed a few years ago. It has been designed exactly with this purpose. How can we do an open system as a building? This is the University of Pisa. Just to make an example, this was born as a school, but the project has been proved to be so flexible that now it's a school, but it's also a memorial in memory of the victim of the Holocaust in the city of Pisa. And these are representing the victims. This is a project done by an artist from the University of Cambridge. But the point was that the building was designed as a canvas, and also the fact that it was open enough. This was the whole of the building. Now is the memorial. And again, it's not an alternative. This building is designed so that now it's all these things together. So this is a perfect. I'll say it's a consistent idea of exaptation. And here you will see some of the projects I was mentioning before. So this is something that we have been tried to do many times with our students and bringing them to the attention of the, let's say, the international audience. And the reason is not because we are generous, or not only because we are generous with our students, because we think they are talented. The reason is because if we accept that there is the need to change the taxonomy, and we accept that the taxonomy as it is a reflection of people like me, we definitely need to empower them to have the possibility to embrace the energy of creativity as much as they can. In simple words, exaptation is telling us this is the moment in which the knowledge is less important, but the creativity is more important. And we know that we have a couple of talented, many talented students. We know that we need to let them prove this when they are 20, 25 years old. So these are several projects done by our students. These have been presented in Milan Design Week. These are the Italian Institute of Culture. This curated by Imper Bellini was the Venice Biennale, Fuori Salone, curated by the colleague Fadil. The Italian Institute of Culture again, the Italian Embassy, Fuori Salone Milano. So these are all projects that, again, thank you. This has been part of the possibility that we had. And again, thank you on behalf of our students, because again, this is something very specific and very important for us. We want to become, at least I would like to be recognized as a facilitator, because I like the idea of exaptation. I like to think that the biggest power that I have is to build multiplication, not to become, even if I like soccer, I don't want to become Gigi Riva, for those who like soccer. And I want to conclude my part before giving 5 minutes also to my colleague Antonio, because we never discussed this in the term that I said, but I strongly believe that here you see, and I want to write a book about this. This is a perfect example of spandrel. So this is the installation, the future of design, that has been done for this year, the Salone del Mobile, curated by Maria and Giovanni, and with the presence of many colleagues, but even more, building a collection of, if you want, a finalistic proposal that have been merged in this project. So here, if you want to see this from an exaptation perspective, you are seeing an installation, but at the same time, you are seeing a projection of the creativity of the brain, the neuronal connection that Ethel Pringle described so well in her article. So I think that this is the perfect conclusion of this. The rest is the book, but the perfect conclusion to understand how this pathway concluded in this, let's call, big brain of creativity, in which all the neurons are here. I see a couple of neurons there, here, you know. I can see, yes, other neurons there. So I think that this is a perfect image showing how, in the bigger scale, if we extend this way of thinking to a city and to the idea of architecture, maybe we have more chance to overcome the crisis. So thank you very much. If you don't mind, I would like to, because my colleague Antonio Lara-Hernandez, co-author of the book, is Antonio, are you still there?
Yes, I am here.
Well, firstly, you have to know that Antonio is the most distant place from here. He's in Auckland, in New Zealand, in this moment.
I am in the future, Ale. Here is Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time is it, Antonio?
Hello. Yes, it's 10:40 a.m.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
not bad.
Perfect. Okay, I would like to leave one of the most relevant chapters. As I said, you see before, there are different terms that can be used for things that could be included in the idea of exaptation. One of these is, for sure, is a temporary appropriation. And this is a research that I would say has been particularly relevant for Antonio's career. Is, by the way, if you allow me, is in the Center of Sociology of the University of Cambridge. This is cited as the idea of temporary appropriation. Antonio's research is cited as the most significant in the field. So you want to explain what is temporary appropriation?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ale. It's good to see you. We have been very busy. And I am very happy to share with all of you this moment, because it has been more than 5 years of work to put all together in this book, many places, many experiences, and everything started here in New Zealand when I met you. And then, well, after traveling around, here we are. And well, as Alessandro mentioned, one of the examples of architectural exaptation, but within the urban sphere, is the phenomenon of temporary appropriation. If you allow me, I will share some images, and it will be faster to explain in that way. If I may share a screen. Share. Can you see my screen now?
Yes,
Can you see my screen, Ale?
yes, we can see.
Okay, this is a photo that I took in Mexico City. Exaptation is about creativity and redundancy, versatility, flexibility. And before the cars arrive and so on, the street was the public sphere where everything happened there. And now that, well, I have a daughter, and if we want to take her to play, we need to take the car to go to a playground, and then she can play in a safe environment and so on. And it brings to my mind that when I was a kid, I used to play in the street, probably like many of you. And I'm not saying this in a romantic way. I am saying this, that the more flexible and the more versatile we design spaces, the better, because then we avoid to have monofunction buildings and spaces. And I will go quickly just with these photographs, in which it illustrates, first of all, the creativity and the organic way in which people utilize spaces across the globe. Well, in this photo, these guys are playing fronton in the street. So a place that is meant to be for circulation is utilized for playing. But also in the side, you can see that it's utilized for selling things, socializes, and so on. This is another example, and they are playing squash in the wall of a museum. This is also in Mexico City. I will show you another examples in other cities in the world. This one is perfect. This is fascinating because you can see 3 women. Yeah. One of them is cutting the hair of the other one, seated in the bollard of the street. The other one is learning from the teacher. So for that moment, I mean, in that moment, the street became in a hair salon. This is fascinating because, well, as Alessandro rightly mentioned, if we want to avoid or minimize the impact of climate crisis and sea level rising and so on, we should reduce the CO2 emissions and so on. And one of the ways to do that is to utilize the creativity. So then we can foresee different functions and different uses in spaces, in buildings. I will show you another example, but this is one. I was in Hong Kong. Yes. Well, this is a street in next to a park, and the man was exercising or doing, I believe, is Tai Chi. But the temporary appropriation is slightly different from placemaking. Placemaking is organized. Temporary appropriation is bottom up, is organic. It happens, it just occurs, it's temporary. And that's the beauty of it. So people do it when they feel identified with the place. This is another example. I mean, how well, in Hong Kong, the scaffolders, many of them were made with bamboo structures. So this woman extended their shop. So with these elements, with these temporary elements, it became as an extension of their showcase merchandise and so on. This is another example, also in Hong Kong. In the left-hand corner, you can see a little altar for well, I'm not sure is the proper way to call it a saint or some god or ancestor maybe, and the people avoid to cross there because of that element, even though it's the sidewalk. So how a symbol and the proper cultural cues, then people from the place can recognize that. And this is another picture, but now we are in Newcastle in the UK. Yes, well, we have many examples across cities how artists and musicians temporarily appropriate streets in order to make their stages. Also, well, we have worldwide also many political examples of this, and I don't want to go into that. There is another photo that I wanted to share. This one was also in Newcastle. I was well, I took it from distance because it was a party for children. I am used to, I have seen these, I mean, in Mexico, in South areas of Italy, also in Southeast Asia, but I was not expected to see that in Newcastle, where people close the road to have this party for children. So they literally occupy the public space as claimed for their own and utilize them for their own purposes. So something that is meant for a different purpose can be utilized for something very for a different use. And well, and this one photo, I also took it from the distance in order to avoid, the riots and to bother people and so on. They were ensembling an IKEA furniture in the street. So the corner of that street for that moment became a workshop. So the versatility and the spaces where that we design as architects, as urban designers, as Alessandro rightly mentioned, can be utilized as a tool. And again, this is an example of exaptation, but within the urban sphere. And if we look closely, if we are open to see these kind of phenomena, there are many of them in our daily life. I will stop sharing. Sorry, and have I stopped sharing? Yes.
Yes, perfect.
So what I'm trying to say, just to close my intervention, and which is in line with Alessandro say, is that if we encourage, allow creativity to happen and to occur, I think we can somehow overcome this crisis that we are facing now. And well, as Alessandro rightly said, you can read more about that in our book. I'm happy that it just arrived, sounded safe. So I have my copy here. So thank you for the time and for the space, Ale.
Thank you very much.
All of you for organizing all of this.
We'll leave the stage to.
I don't know if we are supposed to sit here.
Well, we are me and you, so probably we can also be very informal if you want.
All right, so, well, we have a microphone. All right. No. So this is fascinating. I'm always excited to have like colleagues work and see, but like this is like a fascinating book also, and very much the spirit of the times as we were discussing, right? So, so we're saying like we had this discussion before and say like how we talk about function follows form, as opposed to form follows function. But then also I was thinking like form follows function, like when Le Corbusier, wrote about it, it was like the time of the machine and the automobile. So it was like the right time for this model. So now, if exaptation is like, I kind of have two questions in one. But like if acceptation is like the spirit of the times, the zeitgeist, then like you talked about AI, you talked about like this kind of like recyclability. So like how does it tie to the, how does it express the times? Can maybe talk a little bit about that more. And the other thing I was thinking is that's the point of the class, because Alessandro came while we had the class, my studio, and we started discussing. There was an emergence there, an exaptation. It's about how does it compare to the time of architecture where it was like before the form follows function model, which was like ornamentation, like Baroque, and so on. So like if you wanna, both of you like elaborate more on the kind of what acceptation means for the architecture kind of paradigm of thought.
Yes. No, thank you. Yes, as we are discussing, I think that acceptation, of course, is a term that is used in evolutionary biology. So it's about the heuristic value of biology in architecture. But I would like to say that probably if we would have started without knowing, without building our research on the shoulder of these, let's say, what I believe they are my personal heroes like Stephen Jay Gould, I would say that acceptation is more in architecture is more translated that if we want to talk about the zeitgeist is about more passing through a system of taxonomy, idea of the world done about simplicity to a world of complexity. So acceptation in this case in architecture means that we cannot rely on this simplistic idea that we are able to preview something happening in the future and use the form to respond to function. The world is more complex than this. Actually, this is the point. The problem are correlated in a way we don't even imagine. And as Arthur Pringle was telling to us, creativity, or let's say the spirit of the art, is about embracing this complexity. Let me tell this in a different way. So when a primitive person was pushing the hand still in the cave, what he was actually doing was downloading enormous quantity of information. This quantity of information is not controllable in a linear way. So I preview the future. Our brain is not efficient enough to do so. So what happened today is that the scenario that we have, nobody on this planet, excluding the Club of Rome in 72, was able to preview these things. So nobody has designed anything for what is happening now. So the primitive men are telling a different thing. You push the hand, you download the information, and this information comes from feelings, from images, and you create something that is not related to trying to expect, trying to design something for a future scenario. Well, you have more chances there to find this complexity a response. So I know that it's kind of difficult to explain this in simple words, but this is exactly what acceptation means, is the fact that we need to embrace the complexity of the environment. And we need to accepting this complexity means that the linear thinking is not enough. We cannot solve the problem in that way. And we know that from previous experience. I was making the example of the fire. How many chances do we have that a human brain, and believe me, the human brain of the person who used the fire was exactly like ours, that person could think about the fire and could use the fire. In simple words, how many chances do we have today to dream, when we are sleeping, to dream about the right tools that allow us to overcome a problem? We are unable to do this. So the only thing that we are able to do is to embrace the capability of creativity, which is about making a shortcut. So passing through the unconscious part and maximize the quantity of information. Because our brain is designed in that way. The big amount of information are connected without passing through our logic. I know it's difficult to accept, but it's difficult to accept. Stephen Jay Gould made something very interesting. When he was explaining these concepts, he said, there are several revolutions in human history. The Copernican revolution, the evolutionary revolution build, overcoming the idea of creationism, psychoanalysis, and look at all these revolution. All these revolution that are very difficult for human, because in all these revolution, basically the human is taken out for the pedestal and put down. And every time we try to go up. So this is the big problem also of this revolution, because when I say artist revolution, it's basically and say artistic capability, embracing the complexity. I'm saying that there is no way that we can control with the normal process that we use to control the thing. We can do this, but we need to be more creative than this.
So if the automobile was a symbol of like Le Corbusier's time, what's the symbol of exaptation time?
The panda, for sure.
The panda. Is it AI, is generative AI?
Well, I think yes. I mean, this is my point about this. When I've been asked, I've been working quite a lot with AI, and I know there are different positions. My position, every time that I've been asked what I was saying before, so AI is a threat. I said, well, it's not a threat more than any other thing that human has created. So it's the evolution is telling us something very simple in this case, that there is nothing that has been created by human or by others that threat our survival more than our attitude to suicide. And again, I'm not quoting myself. This is something that is very clear in evolutionary biology. So Telmo Pievani said that humans have a tendency to self-destruction. This is something. So it's not a problem of AI. It's a problem that there is for sure the possibility that human will tend to use AI for self-destruction, exactly like atomic bomb, exactly like CO2 emissions. So the panda is the example of, because the panda, we didn't have the chance to talk about this, but it's an example of a creative creature, let's say. So let's imagine, can you imagine a bear that is designed by an engineer? This is what we said. And again, it's not neglecting the role of engineer. It's saying that the engineer has to work with the architect. By an engineer for a hood, which is probably in Europe or North America, which is done with a certain kind of trees. And basically for living in this world, this animal needs to have very flat paws, and he can eat a lot of meat, and he can sleep in a cave. Now, you take the bear, something, this is exactly the unexpected condition. You take the bear and you drop in the middle of China, in the middle of a bamboo forest, okay? How many chances are for the survival of an engineering perfect machine for the European food to live in a place where the only thing you can eat is bamboo, and bamboo you cannot only take with the hand, and it does have no thumbs. Okay, so is it that? Why the panda? So the zeitgeist is the panda. Panda is creative because his skeleton, his body is full of mistakes, according to our taxonomy. According to evolutionary biology, is a storage of possibilities. The mistakes as a storage of possibilities. So there is a bone that we also have here, because we have so many mistakes in our body we cannot even count. The book about imperfection presented by Telmo Pievani was about this. So one of these mistakes has become the right tool. So the panda now is the only creature with 6 fingers, and one of these elements is the opposite thumb that allowed the panda to grab the bamboo and eat and stay for hours with this thing there. So what I'm saying is that if you watch from this perspective, there is no way that you give a panda to someone and he can make a reverse engineer of the panda. You don't arrive to what was the original design, because the design is more creative than this. It's more complex.
Interesting.
A last question, and then we can hear from the audience. Is Baroque or Rococo, or in general ornamentation, exaptation? Yes? No? And why?
Yeah, this is interesting. For me, this is a crucial, and of course there is a chapter about this. It's about mannerism. It's a crucial thing because, again, decoration, ornamentation is a word that makes sense in the architectural categorization of things. if you bring this into the possible new taxonomy of architecture, the idea of decoration as something marginal, which is a bioproduct, doesn't make any sense anymore. So in simple words, the reason why we make a Baroque church is that we don't know why, we don't know how, but for sure, the exuberance of shapes, which are for sure variable, diverse, and redundant, in our brain and in different phases have been co-opted for something that we don't even realize, because this doesn't pass through the logic pattern. So in simple words, Baroque is as functional as modern architecture. And again, in architecture, we usually say that functional and rational are the same thing. In evolutionary biology, we are saying rational is one thing, functional is another thing. They can overlap or not. So Baroque is very functional, but is not rational. And there are different ways, and then in the book, you will find also a specific understanding how, because every time that Vidcover was saying, oh, Baroque is horrible or brandy because it's not natural. And then, of course, now we know that it was wrong. Nature is more disorganized and is more like Baroque rather than the classic. But the question that I think that Vidcover or Brandy or even Norbert Schulz, they didn't do is why, if this is wrong, and we give this moral value to this thing, why we do this? Why the people in between the 15th century to the 18th century start doing things that are completely useless? Why we did Gothic church? And even more, why, and this is the most interesting question that link evolutionary biology to design, why we thought for many years that the primitive people put in the end, their only thought was running, following a beast and try to hunt her. And then now we discover that they were spending 90% of their time watching the rock and drawing and making shapes. Doesn't make sense to us. Why evolution push us to do this? Because somewhere this is functional. This is not rational, but it's functional. If it makes sense.
Yes. Look forward to reading more of the
Yes,
book.
yeah.
So we have time for some questions, and to say that we have printed discount codes.
Yes, they're here.
So if you haven't got your book, you should get it and get a discount code from, you can just pass it over. So if anyone has questions,
The students, I promise that I will send you the PDF, but
you maybe want
if
to
the
come here,
publisher
so
listen to me.
we can listen on Zoom as well. Or you can say and we can repeat it.
Oh. Can we come over there? or yes? Okay, thank you for the mind-boggling presentation. It's really fascinating actually how the nature dictate the human life, structural architecture and engineering, everything. And it reminds me that the classical book by Louis Mumford, The City in History, in his book, and related that book and many other books he wrote actually how the adaptation of the biological and evolutionary effect on the development of the city, and he wrote a lot about architecture too.
Yes.
So why it is taking so long time for us to understand the application of the biology in architecture or evolutionary architecture? The Louis Mumford book was written in 1950s. And about 75 years later, another huge book came up like application of the architecture in the biology. In between, there are some other books, but
Yeah.
this is the application we need actually, architect, planner, and engineer actually. Is any the political, philosophical application that evolution is not accepted by the society at law, the conservative society, conservative motion, that affecting the acceleration of the knowledge in evolutionary fields?
No, absolutely. There is an inertia of the let's say, as I said, the society, again, this is an evolutionary perspective, what I'm saying, more than architecture. The societies tend to be inertial and move. This is called punctuated equilibrium. By 9th century, by the way, again, American, New York are important. So society tend to be inertial and to stop the change. And it's fine like this. Again, the axis move from the inertia to the change when the crisis grows. So I think that probably there is more, the reason why I think now it's a better moment to talk about this is because the idea that something is changing and not necessarily for the best, make the ground for reflection of alternative path. But as I was saying before, there is a standard modality of thinking of humanity, which is linear. And it's okay like this, because the survival operates in this way, with linear thinking for a long period, and then this change. So in a way, it's understandable that the society operates in this way. So the point is that how much we are variable and flexible to be ready for the change. And we know from this theory that if we don't do this, we have risk of survival. And human, by the way, have been close to risk of survival already a couple of times for this reason. So we are not, I'm very optimistic, but let's say we tend to be resistant to this. More regarding architecture, I appreciate the reference to Louis Mumford, because he's someone we have quoted many times because of what you said, but also because Louis Mumford, especially when he was talking about brown decades, which is about the American history, about the Civil War in the United States, was defining the brown decades like exactly in the way Michel Foucault defined the taxonomy. So architecture is not neutral, is not something that what we do now is perfect. It's just a reflection of what we have in the mind as a people. In simple words, what Mumford is saying is that if we take the case what we are talking here, it's probably we are not able to make any change talking about architecture. It's more a political thinking and the historical thinking that needs to come first. It's how we design our society, and then we can design a better architecture. It's difficult to think that we design a better architecture and we influence the society. We can try, but I think it's, if we see Louis Mumford, it's more possible the opposite.
Ale,
Yes.
Ale, sorry, I just want to mention that it comes to my mind that also one of the topics that we discuss about that taxonomy of architecture and architectural exaptation is the way we see knowledge. For example, I was so surprised a couple of days ago that I was talking with a researcher here about a collaboration, and then she mentioned something called like indigenous knowledge. So it was not knowledge, it was indigenous knowledge. So we tend to think that the knowledge from previous or unknown societies, civilizations, is or are less important or less relevant. And in our book, we also discuss that this is crucial for us, as you said, to overcome this crisis. And well, these words of Lewis Mumford, I mean, it came to my mind that if we approach and if we see knowledge and architecture and this division between archaeology and architecture, if we can bridge that, we certainly can see in a different way and probably with more creativity. Probably many of the strategies to overcome this crisis, we have already that knowledge there. We just need to go and look for it.
Yes, I definitely agree. By the way, another book which is for sure a reference for us is the exhibition at the moment. Just to quote that many books I've already spoken about what we are saying now. Now we are just, this is just a point, we are making a point, but as I said, many of the things we are said, they've been said. One is by Bernard Rudowski in the exhibition about architecture without architects, explaining in the introduction that the architecture that we define architecture in this moment, in the 64, is actually a small part of the culture of architecture that is much more extended and global. But in a way, if you go and read the book, there is a part of this. And he was telling this in more ethical way. In our way, we are saying, well, maybe there we can find solution to the problem that we have today. You have time?
Yeah. For two quick questions or one question, two quick.
One long one or two short?
I will be very quick then. You know that it's not true. I promise, I promise.
Yeah, you were.
It's quite all right.
Okay. So I have just one comment because yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to Fred Ken, one of the founders of the Project for Public Space. And so it's fitting to the pictures you showed. And maybe you should take a look on the project, Social Life Project. He's collecting his knowledge from 50 years of pedestrian zones, these small corners, this micro-social architecture, which is really crucial for social life in the city, and also his approach of placemaking, because it's not this top-down planning placemaking, it's more about thinking of these patterns which are necessary to have an easy access, an easy basis for our cities. And he also was talking about this car-centered planning problem and also these streets. This was one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing is a question, because I have two brains. So if I'm thinking from sociology, I'm thinking with Auguste Comte and okay, he's talking about this evolutionary thinking, everything is getting better. But if I'm thinking as coming from history of art, I know that if we go back to the antique, to Roman antique, that we already had the knowledge, we had these water pipe systems. And then in Middle Age, we forgot it. So this is also part of the knowledge we have. So that can be also added, that we know it. And this is one of these problems, that we have solutions and we forget these solutions.
Yes. No, what you say is exactly what Antonio said before and what he meant. In reality, especially the part where you talk about indigenous knowledge is about these aspects. The fact that there is, if we move out from the idea of evolutionary progress, but also we move out, if I can say, from the idea that, oh, there is something which is indigenous and so it's vernacular, it's nice because this is also a pattern that doesn't work well. We go back to the hands of the chimp and the gorilla. I think we find a solution there. So the problem is not if more indigenous is better, if progress is better. The point is that the world is complex and we have to compose these pattern or mosaic in a more creative way. And as you said, the case of Göbekli Tepe was an extreme way to tell exactly what you said. It's sure that we have been able to do things 11,000 years ago that then we completely forgot, and then we start back again in different ways.
Giovanni.
Yes, it's interesting that it's in this kind of disorder and disorganized system that is a quality. And it reminds me a lot of the Parisian theory of the formativity. We learn while we do, while we are proceeding, and we can forget. And since you were referring also to Foucault, what is the role, and if there is still a role for memory and continuity within this disorganized system, which, by the way, it's not that we had the chance of discussing that it's not a disorder, it's something that is an abstract entity that means, and it's an antithesis to an order. It's just an order we are not able to understand. Right?
Exactly.
So that,
Yes.
But what is if as a relevance, the role of memory and continuity, if there is any?
Well, absolutely, yes, in the sense that the whole point, again, I probably not highlighted enough this. The point is that if we move out, and as you said, it's not about telling order is bad, disorder is good, it's about also the capability to understand categories that still are difficult for us. The reality of, let's say, the main point of the book is to make a statement. And the statement that differently from what we think creativity is a collective capability. It's evolutionary result of collectivity. And associative thinking is the system that we use to put in contact these different information that come from a society and we merge them together. So in simple words, a part that is called in the book Deep Time, we are trying to show this, that this collective knowledge operates in two different ways. One is diachronic, Okay, so we need to increase our possibility we have to increase diversity, redundancy, variability, which means that we have to be as open as possible. So we need to have in diachronic open. So every culture, every knowledge needs to be important. But then there is also, the synchronic I meant. Then it's also important the diachronic knowledge, because we have seen that there is not such a thing as evolution. So it's not from a basic culture we arrive to refined culture. This is not how evolution works. This was our idea, but was wrong. So memory is very important for this reason, because it's the possibility to embrace collective creativity, which is the creativity that doesn't only belong to the community as it is today, but as a human community that has a presence of 200,000 years on this planet. So memory, it's crucial here. Maybe the difference is that we don't have to rely only on memory as something that we remember, but also as something that is transferred. If you want to put this more in biological terms, something that is somehow printed in our genes and we don't recognize anymore. And we have several examples of this. I promise that I will be shorter. This will be, the question would have asked here, 1 hour or maybe one day. Giovanni and I would like to do
I
this.
think we have to wrap.
Yes.
up. This was, as said, mind-blowing. It's fascinating, and we hope to continue the discussions in the classes with the students.
They hate me because I do every time.
Very good. So nice to meet you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh, thank you
We'll
very
talk more over.
Are you sure? Because I take it in.
I have it.
Take care. Go eat.
All the best.
Classes,
All the best.